Welcome to the Lightforge podcast slash VOD on the Grin and Goat YouTube slash, I don't know, whatever you're watching us here. Twitch stream. Hi, Twitch viewers. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Hello. We're doing the Forged in the Barrens review. This is going to be a new one for us because it's our first one with a new system. Much faster. I can promise you that. Much faster.
Yeah, so like in Dark Moon Races, so if you guys have not tuned in for a while because you're like just coming back to the game because the core set is really exciting or whatever, we used to have an algorithm that did everything and it was really good, but it took like 1,000 hours between me and ZD Man and Merps to actually do each expansion, and it was just too much. So we stopped doing that. And the last mini set, Dark Moon Races, we did not use the algorithm to rate. And I thought the results were decent, but it was only like 30 cards, less than 30 cards actually, because that we reviewed because some weren't in the arena and whatever. And this is the first real expansion that we're doing. And last time we had a number system and we weren't quite happy with the number system. It wasn't the best way to communicate. So we also have a new system now to like a tier system, right? A tier, B tier, F tier, S tier. Very normal. Everyone knows how to think in that term. And so we'll do that. Or you can even convert it to a 5-star system in your head if you really want to. Although if you do that, then you'll just see we really do not give out a lot of 4s at all. Like very few 4s, almost no 4.5s, and like obviously no one gives a lot of 5s. But yeah, that's what we're moving into here. But before we get there, as we normally do, we are going to start and talking about the meta. The meta that is going to happen in Forged in the Barrens. So, with the rotation system, it gets a little bit wonky. So bear with us. But weird things are happening.
What are you doing? You're making me big.
Yeah, I'm making you big, and then Hades came up for a little bit. Okay, we're good now. We're good now. Okay, so I normally bring 4 points in that talks about how the meta is going to be. This is going to be a complicated meta. I'm going to come out straight out and say it. This is going to be a messy, complicated meta without a lot of very cohesive themes because everything is in this meta. You want your curve, you got your curve. You want a whole bunch of board clears and play control, you got it. You want a lot of taunts, that's there. You want to have some reach, that's there too. You want to generate infinite cards, sure. You just want to build a small deck, go for it. Like everything is in this rotation. The rotation, by the way, is Forged in the Barrens, the new set, which we'll talk about. Ashes of Outlands, Skullomance Academy, Dark Moon Fair. So all the previous Year of the Phoenix sets are in, and Dark Moon Fair includes Dark Moon Races. Then, the 2 extra sets that they're adding in are Rise of Shadows and Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. Rise of Shadows, you probably remember and hate for the lackeys. So, once lackeys are in, all bets are off, right? Like, just starting there. And then Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, if you guys remember, was like the most ridiculous set ever. Like, at the time. And is still one of the most ridiculous sets. It came at the end of the year, and it has these tri-class cards. It has all the various potions that blow everything up. Abyssal Enforcers in there too. Like, you can't make any predictions because it's all tri-class. You can discover each other class's cards. Like, it's crazy in Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. And we're going there. We're going to take the super powered sets of the Year of the Phoenix and throw in Rise of Shadows, which is just a ridiculously like random kind of set with lackeys and weird power level spikes, and Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, which is kind of the same. I think Mean Streets of Gadgetzan has more even power leveling, but they're all high. Like, it was known as one of the best sets for a while until the more recent, general power level increase. So that's kind of the system where we're stepping in here. With that in the background, I'm not going to go in and say, like, this is how many 2 drops, 3 drops. Just know that everything's good, everything's fine, everything's normal. Like, there's no theme here on the rotation. It is a very well balanced set of rotations, and which playstyle ends up winning out is going to depend on how Blizzard deals with the offering rates. Like, if they pump up Ashes of Outland offering rates, you may get a pretty fast, not Ashes of Outlands, Forge in the Barrens, you may get a pretty fast meta. But if they don't pump it up, and they probably won't, because we haven't gotten an offering bonus on the new set in quite a while. And instead, Year of the Phoenix is all super freaking slow, especially the first two sets. And remember the endless card meta that was Skullman's Academy for the first 2 months? We may honestly get back there despite what Forge of the Barrens does. So without going there, I'm just going to talk about Forge of the Barrens and some interesting like set-wide things I noticed about Forge of the Barrens. First of all, I think everyone noticed this. There's like no 6 mana cards. Normally, a set has like a bunch of like 8 mana cards, a couple 9 mana cards, and like a 10 mana card. Never have we had a set that we looked at and was like, oh, there's not even 6 mana cards. Like, here are the Barrens card distributions. There is one 10 mana card. It is a Mage Legendary. There is one 8 mana card. No 9 mana cards, just one 8 mana card, and that's a neutral, and we'll talk about that card. Then there are 5 7 mana cards, which is still not a lot, and 3 of those are legendaries, and 2 of them are in Druid. So if you're not a Druid, you're stuck with 3 legendaries, possibly 2 of those are class cards, 1's a neutral. Like, that's 7 mana. That's Stormwind. That's very normally part of the curve. Like, back in the algorithm, the curve goes to 7. Like, after 7, because we had a whole math thing behind it. So it's not like we told the system, oh, you only go to 7 for curve. It just, after 7, the curve considerations become so like null that it stops calculating. But 7 is still kind of part of the curve, and there's barely any cards there. And even worse, you go to 6 mana. This is what surprised me the most. 6 mana, Boulder Fist Ogre. Normal. Classic, right? I mean, no longer in core, but that's how normally part of a curve 6 mana is. In Forged in the Barrens, there are exactly 2 6 mana cards, 1 neutral, 1 priest. That's it. So if you're looking to, like, you know, play some high mana cards, that's not going to happen. That's not to say there's not a lot of card draw in this set. That's not to say that everyone's going aggro, but everyone's playing a lot of cards. This is going to be a set that is heavy on playing multiple cards in a turn, heavy on getting cards fast, heavy on refilling your hand, not heavy on, you know, waiting for a Twin Tyrant to blow out the game. Not even that heavy. Not even heavy on like putting a really big card in your deck and then eventually drawing it, right? Like, there's a couple of those out there, but they're very rare compared to what you normally see. So it's a totally different philosophy than what we had been seeing in Year of the Phoenix. In many ways, it's the exact opposite of Year of the Phoenix, except for the power level thing. But this set has ridiculous power levels too, especially in neutral. And anything you want to add about the general mana cost, or I mean?
No, I mean, I think that's basically fine. You've basically talked about like just a fact. I have no real analysis for a fact.
Okay, good. Moving on, the next theme you'll see in Forge in the Barrens are 3-drops. Forge in the Barrens, I mean, you know there's no 6 mana cards or above. I'm not even talking about drops there, it's just 6 mana cards or above. So you kind of figure there's going to be a whole lot of curve cards. It's just, there's still 130-something cards, right? Yeah, it's going to happen. And yes, there's good curve cards all throughout the curve being defined as not including 6 or 7 drops, apparently. But especially on 3, the curve is going to get ridiculous. There were periods in Hearthstone history, Lone Champion, Tar Creeper, and Lone Champion, by the way, is part of the core set now, where 3 drops became just really, really good. It became so good compared to 2 drops that people wouldn't even take 2 drops. They would just start the curve on 3. 3 drops are getting back to that level. It's actually getting better than that level of ridiculousness. It's really gone to another level, and we'll get to exactly which cards, but there are quite a number of really good 3 drops that really push the boundaries of what we've seen in a drop. And there's the fact that there's a whole bunch of them, and you know, some of them are like common. It really means that 3s are going to be a big anchor. There's also a bunch of good 2 drops. Like, the 2 drops in this set are not bad at all, but the 3s are like the power levels really kind of take off. So we've gone through a whole bunch of metas now where your curve really does start on 2. You could start on 3, but that's kind of like a not recommended kind of play. And Barons is very curve heavy, and you'll be offered certainly a lot of 2s. But as far as the curve is concerned, 2 might as well not exist because of how ridiculous 3s are getting. And depending on offering odds and all this other stuff, like we very well may not get to a meta in which you don't want to draft 2s, because really the 2s are fine. This is not a bad 2 meta, but the 3s are kind of amazing. So I'm curious to see if in a world in which we no longer have buckets, we would ever go back to a curve starts on 3 meta. And the Year of the Phoenix sets are still in, which has a lot of really good 1-drops. So I think it is more likely than not that the curve still incorporates 1 and 2 drops, as it does right now. But it would not be out of the question if in certain classes or certain playstyles your curve just starts on 3. Like, I think it becomes an option. So this is what I mean by, like, this new set. It seems like everything's happening. It seems like everything's possible. I have not seen a set and rotation like this in quite some time. I can't remember the last time I seen it. I'm sure we've had it before, but it's pretty wide open. And we were talking about this beforehand, but like before we started recording. But also just the Forge of the Barrens cards. They're good, but they're kind of basic in design. Like, they're not. It was pretty easy to score them because they weren't doing anything crazy. It was all pretty fundamentals based, so you can use it to do a lot of like different things. Anyway, curve-tastic 3s is another theme that you will see in Forge of the Barrens. Next theme is cheating tempo. So not just on the 3 drops, but even on the 2 drops, even on the 4 drops, you're going to see a lot of tempo cheating cards now, in a way that Hearthstone had not liked to print in Year of the Phoenix. So there were periods in Hearthstone's history where it was quite common to see a card that was overstated. But then in Year of the Phoenix, they made it real clear that they're going to print a whole bunch of curve cards, but all the curve cards would like draw you cards or do other stuff that doesn't really affect tempo. In Forged in the Barrens, like a third of your drops at least have some element that could be better tempo than a 2-3 on 2 or a Yeti on 4. And some of them don't have any conditions to it either. And this is something like that you had not seen Hearthstone design do this in like 2 years. So this is a pretty big deal. And I think it's needed because up until now, they made all these powerful cards and they were all kind of late game facing, which is why the whole meta shifted to late game facing. And you still have all those cards in the rotation. Those are your Year of the Phoenix cards. You still have your 6-mana dragon that gives you like Mage Scribe, that's like on curve stats and gives you 2 extra like random spells, right? Like, you still have your Smug Seniors. Like, the anchors are all still there, where you get a lot of card advantage and a lot of other stuff. But the tempo side of this new power level is kicking in now with Barons, and it's going to be pretty obvious when we go over the cards.
Yeah, we've seen this power creep in tempo from expansion to expansion, and we've seen it easier to combo certain things, whether it is more synergies towards any certain synergy or the ability to find stuff that has synergy. For example, I'll call it the dragon meta, in which it was so easy to find dragons through a variety of ways that dragon synergies were super duper easy and you could rely on it. Blizzard has also done that. This is one of the first times and one of the first expansions that Blizzard says you need to expect an exponential increase in potential on certain turns because of the rank cards. So on turn 5, suddenly what someone can get for 1, 2, 3 mana in terms of like stats or removal has just increased a lot. And on 10 mana, it is even more. So Blizzard is clearly demarcating and saying turns 1 through 4 are a little bit different. then turns 5 through 9, which is different from 10 plus. So that's something you also want to watch out for. This clear demarcation. There is still this gradual exponential, like this increase in potential of what your opponent can do. On turn 8, you got to expect the world because everything is possible on that turn. Huge amount of stats, removal plus establishing the board. All of these flips are possible. But Blizzard is also saying you got to just be really prepared. On turn 5, we think that is a trigger point for everything to just go a little bit crazy.
Yep. And what they allow you to do, and this is what they did not allow you to do beforehand, is to do these kinds of flips by flooding the board with tempo stuff. That was what was not possible before. You could always flip the board by removing your opponent's stuff or by generating a lot of resources. But giant tempo swings generally needed a lot of setup and relied on certain combos. And here, like Merp said, the combos are going to be pretty easy to pull off, or not even a combo. Just like, here's an overstated card. And they're on curve, so it's going to be interesting. Finally, the last theme that you're going to see in Forged in the Barrens is board clears. There's a lot of board clears, small board clears, big board clears. Just if you're afraid of tempo getting out of hand, even within Forged in the Barrens, there's a couple of checks on your board getting out of hand. And board clears also have a lot of them. Think Flame Strike, think Holy Nova had gotten buffed even in the core set. And more than that, Mean Streets of Gadgetzan's coming back. That's all your board clears. Dragonfire Potion, Volcanic Potion, Abyssal Enforcer. Mean Streets of Gadgetzan had more board clears than like anything. So, and there's a million ways to discover all those cards. So you're in it like for the board clears. If you're gonna try to be on the board, you got to be able to push out more units once your units get cleared, because it'll be very easy for your units to get cleared. You can build control decks in this meta, whereas in many metas you can't build control decks. I mean, we've been in a pretty control friendly meta until the last expansion, but we're gonna go back there. It seems like everything's possible. Like if Blizzard doesn't do weird things with the offering rates, and I know that's easier said than done. This could be a very interesting meta in the big picture, not even on the individual cards level. Okay, so those are your themes. Figure I'd throw them out there before we start, and you'll see all of these themes. 6 mana cards, very few 6 mana cards, great 3-drops on curve, ability to cheat out tempo by like proactively. Rather than being reactive with it, and also a lot of board clears to be reactive and take back the tempo. That's going to be Forged in the Barrens. I guess it makes sense, right? Like Forged in the Barrens it looks very gritty. I know nothing about the lore, but it seems like you're just in there. You're kind of fighting for your survival. You're being challenged, and it's a lot of back and forth board combat. It seems like not necessarily on the board, but like also spells to remove the board, but a lot of board interaction. And something like, I want to say 85% plus of the neutral cards, at least, that I looked at, the minions, have either same health and attack or much more, like more health and attack. So there's just a lot of like fighting going on in this expansion. Alright, so that's Forged in the Barrens, and we're going to go into our review after this. The review is going to go through first all the neutral cards. We split them up by our tiers, so we're going to hit the good cards first and end with the crappy cards. Then we're going to go class by class, as we normally do. Here is what we'll first do like a mini overview of the new system. So brand new, just did a super amazing job, like literally an hour ago, and created our tier list for us. A rough explainer of what our new tiering system is, and it is actually a tier list. There are actual tiers, and it's not tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. It's S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier. It's very colloquial. So we have one here, and we have if you're watching this on YouTube, you can actually visually see it, but we'll also talk through all of it. And we have 2 example images. One is on the minion side and one is on the spell side. Let's go over minions first. Down at the F tier, you kind of don't have to worry about it. Okay, you know what? Let's start with C tier. Because that's how we designed this tier list. We started with C tier because at the very bottom of the C tier, at the very bottom, is Chillwind Yeti. Chillwind Yeti is a C. The meta has just kind of been passing it. And with the core set coming in, we couldn't put Chillwind Yeti at a place higher than a C. So it is anchoring what is defined as a C. Now, if you think about all the cards, especially if you looked at the cards that Blizzard's been publishing recently, you'll realize that most cards are actually going to be better than Chillwind Yeti. So there's going to be a lot of cards in the B area, and the C plus area, and even the A area, and not a lot of cards below that in Ds and Fs. But an example of a C plus card, we don't get minuses. We only have a particular tier in the plus. So a C is like a Chillwind Yeti, and a C plus is like a Mad Bomber. Or I wanted to put Amani, but Amani's no longer in core set, so I wanted to stick with things in core set, like Acidic Swamp Ooze, like just kind of like, here's a normal curve card with like a little bit extra, right? Then you go on up to the B tier. B tier is already really good. Like, we did this tiering system like really harsh, like Asian Parent harsh, like Stone Skin Basilisk. Think about how ridiculously good of a card that is. That's your 3-mana 1/1 Poison Divine Shield. Like, the way better version of Scarlet Crusader. That's on B tier. I remember back in Ungoro, or not Ungoro, whenever this came out, right after Ungoro, that was like, oh, super...
Catacombs. Huh? Kobolds and Catacombs.
Kobolds and Catacombs. That was like super premium neutral. Like, it was almost auto pick if you see it. And now it's only in the B tier. Like, B tier is legit. You'll see a lot of good class cards in the B tier.
Yeah, I think, okay, so think of it this way. S is super duper rare. It doesn't stand for super duper rare, but it is one in which we rarely use / basically never use. It is reserved for the truly incredible ones. So if A is practically the best, which you will see that is practically the best, then it makes sense that something like Stone Skin Basilisk is, quote, just a B. But we need to firmly establish that so people don't get all angry, because I think you're going to see a lot of cards, you're just like, oh, that's better than a B. But that's why this infographic is important. Yep. Basilisk is a B.
And if you're thinking about the old tier list, you can think of, like, let's say between C and C+, you can think of as grading in terms of, and it scales exponentially. So it's not like C is a 50-point range, and D is a 50-point range, and F is a 50-point range. It's not like that. Like, B is a larger pool of values than C is, and A is an even larger pool of values, because that's how values scale. Moving like 20 points between 200 and 220 is not that big of a deal, whereas moving 20 points between 100 and 80 is huge, right? So that's why there's a lot of room in here. But yeah, B plus are the what you normally think of as the these days the premium neutrals. Like, we have Rap Golem here as an example. B plus cards are insanely good. And in fact, if you follow our rating system, I always use this thing that we call should not be in the game. Like, should not exist. Blizzard messed up by putting this in the game. Not because they actually messed up, but just because they don't think about Arena when they design cards, and they don't remove all the cards from Arena that shouldn't be in Arena. So some cards slip. But once you get to A is mathematically scoring by the Light Force tier list, like rough equivalent scores. A is the point at which you should no longer have neutral cards. Like, it actually breaks the game to have neutral cards in this A level of valuation. So Rap Golem, almost game breaking, not quite. Our standard for A is Twin Tyrant. Twin Tyrant is game breaking. Very obvious if you played in the Twin Tyrant era. It was not fun. Like, game breaking cards get to the point where it warps the game so much that it's no longer just, oh, my opponent has an advantage. It's like, screw this game, I'm quitting. Like,
which is exactly what people said about Twin Tyrant. Exactly what people said. So it's perfect. It's actually the perfect example of what an A tier is.
Yeah. So that's an A tier card. You're not going to see a lot of A tier cards at all. We'll spoiler right here. There are 3 neutral A tier cards in Forge of the Barrens. And like I said before, that means none of those cards should exist and be neutral. Like, even on a very generous scale of power creep or whatever, because it's all relative to other cards. It just should not exist. Our A+ example is the new Deathwing. The new Deathwing, where you only discard as many cards as you kill enemies. That's real good. It's a super good board clear and a 12/12, and you are discarding who knows how many cards, maybe even not that much.
Yeah, maybe not much at all.
Yep. So that you can actually keep playing the game after you play Deathwing, which doesn't seem very fair. That's a legendary, but still A+. That, like, in the arena, that card should not exist. And you'll see, like, when you see a Deathwing in the arena, you'll realize that it is a super supremely unfair card, and there's nothing we can do about it. Now, going up to S tier, the only neutral S tier card that we could find is Blackwing. Runaway Blackwing. And that card's not in the arena.
Well, you could see it in the arena. You can't draft it.
Yes, you can discover it, but you can't draft it, because Blizzard specifically, like, when they released the card, they were like very clearly, this will not be in the arena, and they never do that. They never just straight off take cards out of the arena for pure power reasons. They do it for, like, fun reasons, right? Like, oh, we don't want you to see a mechanic that you can never use in the arena, so all of these cards that are otherwise fine, like, don't exist, right? Think of Cthulhu cards. But Runaway Blackwing was so overpowered that Blizzard was like, nope, this will ruin everything. And they're right. Like, it is super overpowered. It would have ruined everything. And, it still kind of does when you discover it. But at least it's way better than if it was actually just in the game.
If they released it, it would have been the most toxic thing, because it kills itself. Or rather, the second person who plays the Blackwing kills the first Blackwing as well. It's just everything about it, from its power and how it perfectly kills the first Blackwing that's put it. Like, nothing good can come out of this card being draftable.
Is this card, like, used in Constructed at all?
I have no idea for the Constructed game, but I doubt it. Like, I don't see how it fits into anything.
It feels like very much not a Constructed card.
I can't imagine it being in Constructed. So from the decks that I have seen, it has not. So I don't know. Maybe it's in like a B or C tier deck, but
like, so why did I ever print this card? Like, it confuses me. Anyway, that's S tier for you. Really quickly, going down, because you're not going to see many of these cards. D+ would be like Ice Rager. Like, something a little bit worse than a Yeti. Because Yeti, remember, is at the very bottom of the C tier. There's a little room in the C tier to go above the Yeti. And then South Sea Captain is D tier. Like, your 3/3s are D tier. Your 4/4s for 4 mana are D tier. Your Kobold Geomancers are, like, D tier. Your, like, Frostwolf Grunts, right? Like, you don't want these cards in your deck at all. But they don't, like, technically make your deck totally dead when you put one in. F+ tiers kind of, like, gets you there. I have Murloc Tidecaller here as the example. Just, like, it's a 1 mana 1/2. Like, it's no. They're very bad, but they're not totally useless. And then F tier, I took Nerubian Egg, but you know what F tier is. It means it does pretty much nothing.
I think you're gonna have lots of people getting people riot on you about the Nerubian Egg. I also don't think it's like pure F. I think it's like a F+ / on a good full moon day, maybe D.
All right, fine. Like, Watcher, but they're not in the game anymore. Like, Razor Leaf is in the game, but it's not in the arena. Something like that, yeah. Right? Just like pure trash.
But for those of you guys who are actually arguing that Nerubian Egg is decent, it's not actually good. It's
F+ at best.
But I wouldn't have used it for F personally.
Okay. So let's go over the same things in spells. We have, for spells, F, Wind Fury, F+, Eldrazi Warblades. Don't ever take Eldrazi. I know people do. Don't do it. It's bad. For D, we have, like, Sprint. And for D+, Cold Blood.
You have Old Sprint.
Yeah, okay. We couldn't get images for the new ones, but we mean the new ones. We always mean the new ones. So the image says, 7 mana, but I'm talking about the new Sprint. The old Sprint would be lower than D. For C, around where Getty is Arcane Intellect, and for C plus, Arcane Shot. Um, for B levels, again, we're in good cards now in Gibby. This is Basilisk level, Blessing of Kings. And for B plus, you have Holy Nova. For A, we are now at kind of insane levels, True Silver Champion. And for A plus, we have the new Flame Strike. The amount to deal 5 damage to all opponent minions. And S tier is so for class cards, right? It's not the same. Like A tier class cards can exist and not totally ruin the game. It's still not good, but it's at least a class card, and you can like kind of play around them. But S tier, you really just should not be in the game. It doesn't even matter if it's a class card; it just ruins Arena completely. And Expendable Performers is our example of an S tier card. Like,
I think that's a perfect example. It has no weakness. You can use it basically whenever. Like your worst case scenario is you're winning so big that you can't find a use for it. That's fine. If you're behind, it's way too much tempo, exact tempo. Yeah, like you look at a card and you're just like, how is this like conceivable? And I think that's a perfect example there.
Yep. It should not be in the game. I'm very firm about this. S tier cards should not be in the game. A tier cards should not be neutral. This is some like mathematical design. I would call it even a philosophy, but it's like really just a rule of like halfway decent game design. And again, the problem is not necessarily that Blizzard doesn't know this. It's that Blizzard does not design cards for Arena. So they are not thinking about the math in the Arena, even if they know it. And so these cards end up existing, and they don't take all of them out of the Arena. There was apparently a line, and Blackwing, Runaway Blackwing crossed that line, but they do not take like Twin Tyrant out of the Arena, even though they should. Like, to make Arena better, they should take all cards rated, like all neutral cards rated A and above out of Arena, and all S tier cards just out of Arena, period. So yeah, because like if you play the game and you like get like I don't know True Silver or Flame Strike, you're like, oh, that sucks. And if you're like seeing neutral cards and you get like a Rap Golem, you're like, ooh, okay, I got to deal with it. But it's not like a Twin Tyrant. Like it's still not like a Twin Tyrant. It's still not like Expendable Performers, where you're like, I think he has an Expendable Performers, but I'm dead anyway. Every single time, not just some of the time. So yeah. That's our new tier system, and you'll hear us. We'll go over. We'll do all the neutral cards kind of like by tier, rather than going down them by like mana cost or by whatever order Blizzard happens to have them in. We're gonna go over them by tier. We're gonna start with the best, and that'll come up in the next episode or video or whatever you're watching. Any final words, Merps?
No, just ready to get into some cards. I thought this was really helpful, and just to have a frame of reference. So remember, like, maybe have this off to the side, maybe just jot this down, remember it when we go through scores, because I don't want people to be too angry during some of these scores, although I know people will be angry. Okay.
Remember, B tier, we're going to say this a lot when we do the BRT with tier 1. B tiers are like old premium cards. I don't think they're new premium cards. They're like low premium cards nowadays, but they were the top premium cards if you're looking at the game like 2 years ago.
Yes. And also just for reference, when we have these like D plus, C plus, the pluses are rare, and that's by design. It's typically something that we believe is truly between, or almost makes it to the next one, but for reasons that we will explain about the card, doesn't exactly make it there, or why it differentiates itself from the pack. There has to be kind of like some reason that it gets a plus. Otherwise, we're fine with kind of lumping it in where it kind of just belongs in the general category.
Yeah. We aim for a ratio of 3-1 between like B versus B plus. We didn't get there. We have more B pluses than 25% of the category, but that was our goal. So
I think it makes sense with B, because B is going to be a very popular range. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff there, and you do want to differentiate that.
Yep. All right. Well, that's our tier list. We talked about Forged in the Barrens meta that's coming in. We talked about a little bit about the rotation that's coming in. Let's jump into the cards. We're going to jump into the top 4 cards right after this. Until the next episode, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. See you guys.